out.
Norm Beachy, obviously growing up, he was the man.
The Monaro's unbelievably fast.
But the Gagans, of course.
Pete was sort of one of the real heroes.
Still in command as they come out of the corner.
Really successful, flamboyant racer and great to watch. Leo, his brother, coming from an open wheeler background, had a little bit more finesse.
Leo, a very, very fine driver.
Harry was different, you might say, but there was always method in his madness.
And he was another very, very good driver.
I just think he had too much money and it didn't matter what it cost, he did it, you know.
Well, nothing can stop Moffat, and he's on his way. The Holden fast down the straight, much quicker than the Mustang. There's the margin of Lukey. There it is. He led all the way today in a great display of superiority. He'll inject some real life in this championship. Great driver, great car, good preparation. That's the sort of combination you need to win top motor races.
Welcome to Shannon's Legends of Motorsport, and today we have something very, very special. We're calling it the Originals, the pioneers of Australian motorsport. And how is this for a lineup? We have Ian Gagan, Leo Gagan, Norm Beachy, Bob Jane, and one of the founding fathers himself, Harry Firth. And to better understand their stories, we've assembled another group of legends who work closely with those guys and can share a lot with us. I'm talking about people like Kevin Bartlett, Fred Gibson, John Harvey, and Brad Jones. Aaron, it'll be special.
It's going to be very special, and what is also special is some of the material that we've put together for today's show. A massive thank you to Australian Muscle Car Magazine, the National Film and Sound Archive, to the gang here at 7 Sport, and also to Castrol and Shell, who've unearthed some amazing old vision to help tell the story of some of these greats of Australian motorsport. And we'll be joined by the guys who knew them best. These were the guys that won everything that mattered in Australian motor racing. They're the founding fathers of where we are today.
So let's meet the Originals.
Beautiful start there. Gagan pulling out just down over the
They are the men that paved the way. Racers from a time where motorsport was a showcase of skill, showmanship and ongoing developments in machinery. This was raw racing in comparison to what would follow, with men that stand out as legends of the sport. Take, for instance, Harry Firth, the old fox himself. He led the way for Ford and later Holden on bitumen and dirt. Cunning, crafty, innovative. Firth, he was a winner. A 4-time winner of the Armstrong 500 at Phillip Island and Bathurst at a time when the race was just starting to become the behemoth it is now. An Australian rally champion in 1968, the talent scout that gave Colin Bond and Peter Brock their big break. He was the man who led the famous Holden dealer team through the golden 1970s. His shadow looms large over the history books of the sport. In contrast is Norm Beachy. Skillful, talented, sharp and a showman. A 2-time Australian touring car champion, he was the first to win the crown with an Aussie car, a 350 Monaro in 1970. An instrumental figure in the Neptune racing team of the 60s, his cars are loved just as much as the way he drove them. The blue EHS4 Holden, the Chevy Nova, his deep blue Neptune Mustang, the 327 Monaro, and a range of others. More than 40 years since he last donned a helmet, he's still a revered figure. In Sydney racing circles, the Gagan boys were the Golden Boys. Ian and Leo, the former a chunky but brilliant natural driver, the latter an ace in particular in open wheelers. They were the stars of the 60s and 70s. Ian, a 5-time touring car champion, long before the likes of Johnson, Scaife and Whincup ever came close to the feat. Leo, an Australian drivers champion with GT and Formula 2 titles to his name. And when you talk titles, Bob Jane's resume stacks up among the Originals. Australian touring car champion in Jaguars and then his brutish Camaro, he conquered the mountain as well. A rugged racer who created a driving career out of a start as a parts distributor, Jane did it all. A visionary, his contribution to the sport goes far beyond driving. Combined, the five paved the way in a golden era the likes of which will never be seen again.
And Billy, not only is it about the men, but it's also about the machines. And I just wanted to take a moment to have a look at two of the really special muscle cars from Australian motor racing history. I mean, Bob Jane's Chev Camaro, the two-time Australian Touring Car Championship winning car. 1971, 1972, he won the crown. His fights with Alan Moffat in the Trans Am Mustang were the stuff of legends. 427 cubic inch, 7-litre engine, real American grunt. And the same power that was being used by Bruce McLaren in the States in those great Can-Am cars. And of course, eventually the rules changed and we saw the Camaro disappear. But another great car too, how about this? Ian Pete Gagan's Mustang GTA started life as an automatic road car. Who would have thought what was going to happen next? It won the championship at Lakeside in '67, back when it was a single race. It wasn't actually a total championship of races. Did it again at Warwick Farm the next year. Did it again in '69 when it was a 5-round title. In 5 years, it won 89 races from 144. 62%. That's pretty damn impressive. And this car didn't come with a boot lid spoiler, so they designed a boot lid catch, so it just let the boot flick up. Ta-da. Instant rear wing and amazing downforce. There was great ingenuity going on by the men and the machines in this era of motorsport, and that's what we're celebrating today with the originals here on Shannon's Legends of Motorsport.
Well, more on those amazing cars coming up later in the show, but right after the break, we'll have our guests right here to tell some great stories. Stay with us.
Ford Falcon, Australia's #1 road car, was outright winner of the 1963 BP Rally. Here's winning driver Harry Firth. Harry, what sort of road conditions did you strike?
Roughest and toughest. This is a typical bush track which really brings out the handling qualities of the Falcon. You've got to have good brakes, good handling, and plenty of go.
Was Falcon's power an advantage?
Oh, definitely. We luckily have a bit more than all the other people. The Falcon with its pursuit motor.
What about Falcon's braking?
Well, you've got to have brakes on a job like this which are ready for any condition whatsoever.
Did you find Falcon an easy car to drive on this tough trial?
Well, that's why we chose it. We thought it would give us the least amount of trouble.
Following the trial, do you agree that Falcon is Australia's #1 road car?
Well, I had that opinion before we went to the trial, and the results speak for themselves.
Try the trim, taut, terrific Falcon for yourself. Ford Falcon, Australia's #1 road car.
Welcome back to Shannon's Legends at Motorsport. Let's welcome a few legends right now. Kevin Bartlett, Fred Gibson, John Harvey, and Bradley Jones. Now, we might start with Fred and Harry Firth. Now, Harry's a war veteran. He worked, actually, in an Albert Park race with Tony Gaze, Australia's first Formula One driver. There's such a deep history there, but, of course, you were part of his 4 Armstrong 500 wins.
Well, yeah. All I did was drive the car. I'll tell you a story. When I first drove with Harry, it was '67, the year we won Bathurst. I met him at the Abercrombie Hotel in Bathurst. First time I met him, really. And went to his room, and he told me what he's going to do and what I was going to do. And we went to the race weekend, and he told me exactly what to do the whole weekend. He knew everything about everything. There's no, you couldn't even discuss anything with Harry. You say to Harry, what about that? Don't you worry about a cock? It's OK. What about this? That's OK, cock. You just drive the car. And one of the very quick things is, during the race, I thought I was going to be his relief driver. As it finished out, I was the driver and he was my relief driver because he wanted to manage the team from the pits. And he hung out over the wooden fence there during the race and went like that to me. And I thought, Christ, I'm driving a ring out there. What's he want me to do? But it's amazing what you do when the bosses said go faster. Because there's no radios then, so I went faster. The next lap, faster again. Anyway, it was very successful, but Harry, you do it Harry's way.
And John, you had proximity to the Holden era for Harry with the Holden dealer team. I mean, there's a shot behind us here of him with one of the XG1 Tiranas. I always had the impression of looking at the old photos of his old workshop in Melbourne that it looked like a state of disarray. There was stuff absolutely everywhere, but it was effective.
It looked like the tip, and it was. I mean, he wasn't one for presentation in any way, shape or form. Certainly the workshop was, I can't understand how they actually worked in there. It was just so tight and stuff everywhere. And you couldn't find anything, although Harry seemed to know where everything was.
Well, Brad, you grew up watching and admiring these fellas. You may not have known at the time what was going on behind the scenes, as Harves has just explained, but what did you think of these guys and Harry?
With Harry, it was always... I mean, when I started, didn't know he even drove cars, to tell you the truth. I just always thought he was a mastermind, as he sort of portrayed himself to be when you watched him on telly. And you know, for me, a little kid watching it on television all the time was always pretty exciting stuff.
Kevin Bartlett.
I had a bit of a stint with Harry with the first Monaro that raced, virtually the first Holden dealer team car that Spencer Martin and I drove at Sandown, and I think neither Spence nor I saw eye to eye with Harry about a few things, to be quite honest with you.
Doesn't surprise me.
Have a look, guys. KB, I know you're a good open wheeler, man. I just had to bring this up while this was on screen. Harry Firth to the right of shot. The guy on the left is one of the greatest of all time. Yes. That is the late, great Jim Clark, one of the legends of Formula One of the 1960s, raced in the Tasman Series here. He's rubbing shoulders with, you know, one of the absolute greats.
Yes, and as an aside, that same guy, Jimmy Clark, used to drive Cortinas, Lotus Cortinas, very, very hard.
I remember seeing an interview with him there when, you know, getting close to the end, and someone went in depth and said, look, Harry, you've seen all the great drivers in Australia, you've worked with most of them. In your opinion, who's the best driver you've ever come across? And he looked straight down the barrel of the camera and went, me.
That sounds like Harry.
That's Harry.
This is Shannon's Legends of Motorsport, and after the break we'll talk about another pioneer, Bob Jane.
No person has played such a commanding role in the story of the 500 as Harry Firth. He's called the Grey Fox, and this is his lair.
I think anyone, whether you're a driver or a mechanic who worked for Harry, you come on with a heap of knowledge. There was, as I said before, there was only one way with Harry, his way, no other way. He was the boss, he paid the wages, you did what you did. And it doesn't make any difference whether you're prop or bond or mechanics. He treated everyone the same. And he would think nothing of tearing a strip off Bondi or Brocky in front of people, no problem at all. He was a very good driver himself. You don't win 4 long-distance races in Australia, you know, being lucky. And he passed that knowledge on to Brock and Bond. There's no doubt about that. Helped them a lot in fast-tracking their driving skills. Brock at Bathurst, he'd drive Brock around the track. When you aim for that tree cock, you aim for that tree and you turn it like that, you hit the brakes first, get the nose down, bang. And he went through the whole lap with Brock and Bond.
Early in his life, he sort of thought outside the square. He was quite clever, you know, doing things to cars, which eventually would become the norm.
Depends which day you met Harry. He was a deep thinker. Sometimes you'd see things that had a lot of thought into it. Other times just seemed to be ad hoc at the time. And I'm not sure today just where it all fitted, but at the end of the day, he was a lateral thinker and just got things done.
What's most important for you, winning Bathurst or winning the Manufacturers' Championship?
Both. We're greedy.
The 500 has produced many personalities. Some have advertised petrol on the side of their cars, but only one has developed to having his name on the side of the petrol pumps. The one driver to have won the 500 4 times in a row, Bob Jane, is in big business these days. Competing has become a serious enterprise. Racing is a hazardous business. Why do you do it?
Well, the hazards are calculated in your younger part of your life. They don't appear to be too high. As you get older, you realise that there are hazards and you become a bit more careful. I don't see it as a very hazardous occupation. I enjoy it. I think it's part of, when you've been driving for 15 years, 16 years, it becomes second nature.
Well, it may have been hazardous, but Bob Jane was one of the first to really successfully combine promoting his business with his motorsport. This is Shannon's Legends of Motorsport. We're with Kevin Bartlett, Fred Gibson, John Harvey and Brad Jones, talking about the pioneers of Australian motor racing. Now, John Harvey, you drove successfully for Bob in his early years. What was he like?
Oh, Bob was great. I mean, he was a great guy to have as the boss, so to speak, but, gee, you didn't want to cross him. Find out about it. But that never ever happened with me. I mean, I was his #1 driver, and we both drove together and, you know, later on in touring cars, but in the earlier days, I was doing the Formula 1 Tasman Series, Australian Grand Prix, and in the end, with his sponsorship with Castrol and stuff, they were more interested in touring cars, and he basically just stopped running single seaters and concentrated on touring cars. That's the way we went from there on.
Well, Brad, he was your godfather.
Yeah, look, he was very close friends with my parents, and you know, I can remember as a kid he used to come when he had a T-Mart in Albury. He used to come and stay at our house, and I was saving up for a push bike frame. I used to race push bikes when I was a kid. I remember it was $78 for the frame, and I was earning $2 a week working in a sports store, and I had $18, and he was walking past the bedroom to go to work in the morning, and he stopped and he looked in and he said, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm just counting my money up. I'm saving up to buy a bike frame, which he used to race bikes as a kid. He said, how much short are you? And I said, well, $50. And he pulled out a brand new crisp $50 note, which I'd never seen. I went, here. And I went, oh, I can't take that. My mother will kill me. Don't tell her. I said, no, I can't do that either. He said, well, don't tell her until I go. There you go. So he could be very generous. But, you know, I can also remember at Southern Motors him giving some people a pull through one day in office. I've never heard anyone speak like that.
KB, some might make the mistake of thinking that because Bob was an entrepreneur and a businessman, that might have taken the edge off his racing as well as the longevity of his career, as Aaron pointed out. But arguably it was that hard-nosed competitiveness in him that was just as fierce on the track.
Oh, yeah. Don't ever underestimate Janey on the racetrack. Let me tell you, I had a race with him in sports sedans. I was in a Tirana with a Chevy in it, and he was in a Monza with a Chevy in it, an equal sort of footing as far as power is concerned, I thought. And I got past him a couple of times, and I realised he was having trouble. He had a Wiseman diff in. The diff was letting go every now and again. He couldn't get the drive out of a corner, and I was able to get him. And come the last lap, I've come out alongside him, and I'm actually in front of him across the start-finish line. I thought, oh, if I can only just get to the end of the straight. He's come up alongside me, then he went... I don't know what that meant, but it was colour me gone, and the way it went. But good competitor. We had a great laugh about it later on, but yeah, colourful guy.
John, you spoke before about a trip to the United States, and of course, as it turned out some years later, one of Bob's great legacies of his motorsport time is the Calder Park Thunderdome and bringing super speedway racing. I know Brad knows all about it because he was a gun on the oval, but he brought NASCAR to Australia, the first time it ever came outside of North America. And here's something that I've grabbed from the 7 Volt about the Thunderdome.
The Calder complex is presently undergoing a $50 million development, which will give the southern city one of the finest motorsporting facilities in the world. Number one priority is the 2-kilometre super speedway, which is due for completion in a few months. The Tri-Oval will host Australia's first international stock car race in December, and Bob Jane believes the Down Under race fan will sample a little more excitement from his sport.
The last time we had huge crowds to racing in Australia, again with the exception of Bathurst and the Grand Prix at Adelaide last year, was in the 70s when Moffat and Jane and those sort of people were doing crazy things in touring cars. Motor racing then was far more closer, far more exciting. People come to, in a lot of ways, to entertainment. They want to see things happen. Unfortunately, motor racing is, whilst it has a dangerous element about it, it's become too safe, or it looks too safe. And the good thing about NASCAR racing, or the bad thing, depending on your point of view, is they sure as hell let it hang out.
One thing, Bob really knew how to put on a good show. And Fred, he supported so many different categories of motorsport, not just as a driver, but as a promoter and a team boss.
Well, he promoted, had his own race team. He had different cars. He had touring cars. He had sports cars. He had open wheel cars. He had every category of car. As I say before, he's gone NASCAR races as well. He was in everything, but he promoted. And like Calder Park become, like really in Victoria, something very special with the oval and the racetrack as well. But he was. I first met him at Catalina Park MGA, broke my wheel on MGA, triple wire spokes on it. When we got a wheel from, Bob Jane had him on his Jaguar. Went and said to Bob, any chance of borrowing a wheel, Mr. Jane? He said, speak to that guy over there. It was John Sawyer, his mechanic, head mechanic. Yep, no problem. First time I ever met him, that was in the 60s. Super guy, asked him for something, loan us something, can he help you out? You know, it was terrific. Very good guy for motorsport.
After the break on Shannon's Legends of Motorsport, we'll talk about Norm Beachy, but on the way, some more comments from Bob Jane's peers.
Bob Jane was somebody that I couldn't wait to go and stand on the hill and barrack for, frankly, at Calder and his exploits. And again, he also had a good commercial brain as well.
And he was another very, very good driver who grew up with Norm Beachy, thinking it was good fun to crash into each other.
I like John as a person, but I don't know whether I respect him as a professional motor racer.
And one occasion he rang up and said, are we racing on the weekend? Yes, Bob. What colour are the cars? So that was his level of... he was completely left me to run it, which was good. And I really did enjoy that time with him, and we used to get together obviously on the Saturday night in the motel room and be like mates, and we were like mates. And it was a really good time.
He was a great driver, and but he's a real good bloke as well. Like, Janie helped me heaps. He bought a couple of cars from him, and he's a real good bloke. Like, I got along really well with him. Probably the only bloke he never sued.
Faithful out on the track. Don't you think Z-Zone might be a bit strong for a Norm? Too late. He's off. Oh, well. Easy on the old girl, Norm. Gently does it. Norm, not so close. Oh, no, he's rolled. Poor old Faithful. What a mess.
What a mess. A wonderful slice of history there on Shannon's Legends of Motorsport. Norm Beachy, twice Australian touring car champion.
And Billy, we have to say a massive thank you to Shell Australia, who've helped us dig out that from the National Film and Sound Archive. And I think it's amazing that we're talking about a guy here in Norm Beachy who retired in 1972. He hasn't raced for so long, but he's still spoken about so much. So for a guy who retired so far long, he must have done something quite amazing. I mean, he's before my era, but to me, from everything I've read and seen, I get the impression he was kind of the people's champ, a bit of a showman. He got the whole thing about having flair in that sort of era.
He wasn't just a bit of a showman. He was the showman of the era. I mean, he'd win a race and grab the trophy and stand on the bonnet of his car. You know, I mean, it was like, here we go. I've just, you know, I've done this, I've done that. And the thing is, he just drove the hell out of anything he had.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that Monaro that you see there, I've driven that car. I reckon Norm was the greatest hero of all time driving that thing. I've driven it, Colin Bond's driven it, and I've done a few Ks in it, and I tell you what, she's an effort.
Doesn't drive as good as it looks.
Oh, let me tell you. And he tamed the brute, but by gee, he was spectacular doing it, and I can appreciate why, because that's the type of car that it is, and that's the way he drove it.
And Brad, I remember Norm telling me about standing on the bonnet of the car with the trophies, but he also added at the time that there was a sea of people surrounding him. He said you could walk on them. That's how popular it was in those days.
Look, I can remember a race at the Hume when I was a little kid of 67, and he was in not this Monaro, but in the HK Monaro, or the prior one to that. Skinny Manton was there in a Mini, Jimmy Smith in a Mini, Hamo was there in the beautiful orange Porsche, and Bob Jane was there in that red Mustang, or the orange Mustang with the little holes in the headlights. My dad got them together before the start of the race and said, OK, I'm paying you all to be here, so I want a good show for the fans. We've got a big crowd here. It's a 25-lap race. I want you to put it on for the first 15 laps, and then it's open slowly. You blokes can disappear into the distance. So there's a little bit of dosing. That's me, Norm, and Skinny Manton. So, but they put this race on. It was amazing. And then I knew what was happening. I was waiting 15 to go to see what would happen, and they couldn't get away from the Mini or the Cortina of Jimmy McEwen's. And Hamo ended up winning the race, but he got some chewy stuck in his mouth. So you had chewing gum all the way from his helmet, stuck the side of his helmet, the steering wheel over to the gear stick. There were people everywhere. Norm's waving like crazy. It was amazing days, those days. Amazing stuff.
You haven't changed a bit.
No, my ears are a little bit... They've tucked in from wearing a helmet all the time.
Our Shannon's classic car is actually the one we talked about a little earlier, the famous Beachy Monaro, and our thanks to the Bowden family providing this car to Mark Osler.
Bill, back in 1970, cars built to compete in the US Trans Am series, like Alan Moffat's legendary Boss 302 Mustang, were considered a global benchmark. So when Norm Beachy went out and cheekily built what he called his Trans-Oz Monaro and built all the Trans Am imports to win the Australian Touring Car Championship, he claimed it was his greatest racing achievement. This HT Monaro GTS 350 is arguably the greatest Holden race car ever built. It was the first Holden to win Australia's premier touring car title, and also the first Australian-made car to do so, against the best imports from the USA and Europe. It bristled with clever engineering ideas and quality workmanship gleaned from the fertile minds and skilled hands of a small team of talented Aussies. Homegrown hot rodders, working with a fraction of the development budgets enjoyed by Trans Am teams. Under the bonnet, pure brute force, a 4-bolt Chev 350 small block V8, bored out to 6 litres and fed by 4 huge 58mm side draft Weber carburetors on a magnesium crossover manifold. 500 brake horsepower at a staggering 7,700 RPM. And more than 500 foot-pounds of axle twisting torque. There was a choice of Muncie and Saginaw gearboxes, with ratios to suit different circuits. A custom-made multi-link rear axle with a big GM 12-bolt centre and fully floating half shafts. Powerful Corvette disc brakes and 10-inch wide mini-light magnesium wheels. A welded tubular steel roll cage braced the chassis from nose to tail. The engine was lowered and moved back to sharpen handling response. Suspension was also lower and fully adjustable. And there was extensive use of lightweight components. Even lateral weight distribution and rear wheel traction could be fine-tuned to suit different tracks, with a choice of left or right-hand battery locations in the boot and left or right fuel loads in a petrol tank built with separate chambers. There was also a fail-safe dual ignition system, a gear stick mounted hand throttle to smooth down changes, and a whole lot more. Norm Beachy's HT Monaro was a masterclass in how to do a lot with not a lot. A world beater, and proudly Australian-made. And as Bill mentioned, fortunately this hugely significant Australian touring car was rescued by Queensland collector David Bowden, and after a painstaking restoration was brought back to its magnificent 1970 Australian Touring Car Championship winning specification for us all to enjoy today.
Thank you, Mark Osler, and that was indeed a classic car, one I always wanted to have but never quite made it. But in subject of never quite making it, Norm was never that big on Bathurst, was he? Did he need it?
No, I think maybe at the end of the day that wasn't part of his own career move. I think he just about finished with motor racing at that point and was starting to concentrate on his business and his family.
Maybe it was a longer race and he didn't like the longer races.
But these things were much more powerful and faster, weren't they? These things were much more powerful and faster. I mean, this is where it was at in the 70s. Touring car racing is what the crowds came to see. Series production was something that grew, but they wanted to see Norm, they wanted to see Moff, they wanted to see you guys racing those powerful cars.
Smoke and tyres.
And it was this car behind us, the Monaro, that he won the 1970 Australian Touring Car Championship in, and we've got some really rare vision with thanks to Shell from his championship victory that year in this mighty yellow Monaro.
Coburg, Melbourne. Fine November day, and a champion racing car is being readied for another race. It's the Norm Beachy Holden Monaro GTS 350. The big brutal machine has run 6 events, counting towards the Australian Touring Car Championship.
Round 2 of the Australian Touring Car Championship. It's a great start.
Gagan grabbed the lead, but look at Beachy. He's come through the second spot in only a few yards. Yes, there he goes. Norm Beachy's taken the lead, and Gagan's definitely slowing. But it's Beachy belting along up in front, and the Holden's going well. Now, if he can win this one, he'll wrap up the championship. And he'll have to...
It's a moment Beachy will never forget.
This is the Mustang team, flat out. Out of a world of motor oils open to them, the Mustang team chose Castrol. Castrol with liquid tungsten, the oil that shields high-stress engine parts under all racing conditions. Castrol.
Yes, Shannon's Legends of Motorsport and the Gagan brothers have arrived. Pete there trying to sell us some oil.
How good was that ad? That was absolutely fantastic. Bit of a gem from the National Film and Sound Archive that we pulled off some old film. But KB, you raced a lot against Leo in open wheelers, and just compare and contrast.
Well, they're total contrast, the two of them, in a lot of ways. Pete and I were actually of the same age, and he and I started racing at the same track the same year. He in a standard 10, and myself in a Morris Minor.
Your mother's Morris Minor.
My mother's, presumably, yes, presumably.
Well done, Harves, well done.
And Pete and I raced in the lower categories for quite a while against each other, and so on and so forth. And when I moved into open wheel racing, Leo was the open wheel driver of the Gagan family, basically. However, Pete did drive open wheelers a couple of times. In fact, in front of me at Warwick Farm one time, he in a Lotus 20 upended the thing going down at a creek corner and give his back a bit of a rub on the tarmac. But Leo was an excellent open wheel driver, and he and I, over the years, we had many great clashes, and in fact we tangled a couple of times, but we remained friends forever. Until his death.
Fred, you were part of the Factory 4 team, and the Gagan boys were too around that era. What were your memories? Where do they sit in the grand scheme of things?
Oh, the whole thing is, like, to me, Leo was both... When I had my Lotus, I got to know him straight when I had my Lotus Land years ago. And knowing Tom, their father, Tom was a tyrant, you know, really tough guy. John would know that sort of thing. And so they were grown up very strong-willed. But to me, Pete was the legend of the two of them. Legend. Anyone that could drive a car at his size, which is a big boy, and as said, Lotus 20, Lotus 23, whatever he drove, he went well in. But when he got in the touring cars, he's unbeatable.
Well, let's go to Amaroo Park. Here's Leo this time in another television commercial. Hey, Charger, but it's not about the Charger.
What wheels on a racetrack go? A partnership that takes three if you so. There's you and your cries, love, but you need more. And that's what Castrol's for. So if you're looking for the feeling of running free and easy from Chrysler, you can take a tip. Make yours a Castrol partnership with GTX, the winning oil.
And as Leo pointed out to me once, in those days there was still a lot of state parochialism in motorsport, and they were very much New South Wales races, at that stage anyway.
I can remember as a kid, because you used to have to wait and get the magazines, Racing Car News, to learn, and that race that Moffat and Gagan had when Gagan was in the Falcon at Bathurst, you know, and it was leaking a bit of oil, and Moffat was going berserk.
Had his head out the window.
Because he had to have his head out the window, and, you know, and for me, you know, Moffat, and I got to know him later in life, always amazing guy, amazing stuff, but Pete, I always wanted to meet him, wanted to get to know him because he was the guy, you know, and I always felt he had that natural ability. Told me a story at dinner once that he went to America and they were sponsored, he was sponsored by Craven A, and the brand Viceroy or something was sponsoring Mario Andretti in an IndyCar, and they were at a function. He was there with some of the people, and they said, look, we'd like you to meet Pete Gagan. He's our Australian race car driver. And here's little Mario Andretti, little tiny skinny guy, and he's come up and he's looked at Pete, who had quite a bad stutter, and said, so you think you could drive one of these things? And Pete said he poked him in the chest and said, if you can squeeze me into that thing, I'll give you a run for your money. And he said Mario sort of looked back at him and gone, oh my God. And the truth is, if you had got him in that car, he would have given him a run for the money.
Can I tell a very quick story about it was Scafie's birthday and Pete's birthday at Oran Park many years ago. I don't know when it was. And Halsey, who run the circuit, did a parade with Scafie in a Lotus Cortina, and Pete drove our GTR.
Oh, wow.
At Oran Park. I can remember Scafie drove Bob Pearson's black Lotus Cortina a couple of laps, and he drove the GTR. And he come past the pits the first time, flat changing, flat out, did 3 laps in that GTR, as good as anyone would have done, and he never set his arse in it till that morning. And I thought myself, how good is that?
It's an amazing story, isn't it? I remember him telling me about, we talked about the Cortinas and Harry Firth. He was saying how they were racing the Cortinas in some sort of celebrity race. They were enjoying themselves so much, and he and he and Jim Clark were swapping spots, that they put the checkered flag out. They didn't want to stop. They put the red flag out. They kept on going because the dice was really enthralling, and then they shut the track, and they finally had to stop.
That'll stop it. Well, we've got to finally stop too. I'm sorry. We could go on like this forever. And I can even tell you that Jim Clark mowed the Gagan's lawn at one stage, but there are many of them. Here on the way to the break is another slice of Gagan history. It's from Castrol again, but it's not a commercial. It's an entire documentary.
Leo is the older, and rare for a racing driver is blessed with the good looks of a Hollywood imitation of the real thing. Ian is younger and bigger. He's jovial off the track, deadly serious on it.
Very nice to actually get down in the car and strap up and get out on the grid, because you know you're about to do something. Then the national flag in the air and drops and power applied green.
Welcome back, Shannon's Legends of Motorsport. We're talking about the originals. There are so many stories and so little time, but let's have a whip round. Your favourite stories of all the pioneers. We'll start with Kevin Bartlett.
Well, one of the funniest ones was the one that Bradley brought up about the Cortina race at Sandown. Harves was in it. There were quite a few of us, Pete and Jimmy Clark and Graham Hill, and ad nauseum as far as talent is concerned. All of the Tasman drivers and the overseas drivers, we all bundled in there. Well, those little Cortinas, 5 abreast over the hill at Sandown with door handles pinging off everywhere. It was just unbelievable fun.
Fred?
Oh, just on Pete, really. Pete Gagan. I remember one day when Ford built this special vehicle Falcon for him, and we were out testing. He was out testing at Calder, I think it was, one of the first runs. And I said, "What do you think of it?" He said, "Fred, I'd rather have the Mustang." And I thought to myself, how much money that car cost to build was an absolute fortune. He wanted to have his Mustang. I thought, wow, it was a really good story of him. Yeah.
John?
Bob Jane's story. The Monaro, he just built the Monaro and was getting out of one of the other cars. We had a bigger engine, I think the 427, he was going to retire that. We had this Monaro getting ready for Touring Car Championship, and was out at Calder, and he was bringing some people out in one of his cars. I think he had the long Mercedes-Benz limo Grosser out in that, and then put on a thing, and there was photographers there. Anyway, we took it for a run around the track, just a slow run around the track, and it ran out of petrol, because we hadn't put enough petrol in, so we filled it up, or we were about to fill it up, and Bob comes driving in, so someone said, "You better get it back down the pit lane," so I'll drive it down. So somebody shut the bonnet, but they forgot to put the pins in it, and I just give it a hit the petrol in it. I drive about, 2 car lengths, and the bonnet goes up against the windscreen. It's all bent, and so the whole photography thing was over, and Bob was not happy, I can tell you. He saw me as he drove across the track. I took off in it to come down and meet them at the pits, and it bonnet up.
If he wasn't happy, he was never happy, was he?
No, when he wasn't happy, he was very unhappy.
For me, I heard a story about Pete and Alan Moffat at Warwick Farm, and they were doing qualifying for a touring car race. Moffat was in the Trans Am, very focused, went out, warmed the car up for a couple of laps, did 3 laps, broke the lap record, did the pole time, parked it in the pits. Pete fired the Mustang up, warmed it up on his way around to start the first lap, knocked Moffat off by a couple of tenths, parked it in the pits. Moffat fired his car up, did the same thing. They did it 2 or 3 times. then Pete just sat there. About a minute and a half to go in the session, fires the Mustang up, goes out, knocks Moffat off on the last flying lap, pulls up beside him in the pits, winds the window down and goes, "Hey Marvin, can't that fat guy go?"
I tell you what, well done. Go too, because I mean, Fred, you talked about this car. It's on screen here. Just want to take a moment and talk about the Super Falcon that Pete raced, one of 2 cars that Ford built in the early 70s. Alan Moffat had one as well, but he stuck with his Mustang, the Trans Am Coke car. They really wanted to create essentially a Trans Am Falcon to beat Norm Beatty's Monaro. Staggering amount of money that they spent to build these cars. About 120,000 reportedly in that era, which you're talking almost up towards $1 million today, some 40-odd years on. 600 horsepower, 351 cubic inch Cleveland engine. Although this car wasn't totally successful overall in terms of the number of races it won, it's an icon of the sport, and it's a part that really deserves its spot here on the original show today.
Well, time to mention the Shannon's Club. Don't forget... A big thanks once again, of course, to Aaron Noonan and Mark Osler with the Shannon's Classic Car. And on behalf of Shannon's, thanks for joining us. We'll catch up next time. Bye for now.
Mark Skate and the Nissan four-wheel steer.
That wasn't an even playing field. That's a fact.
Listen, they're just awesome.
We thought we could win the race.
Shut the gate. It's an Aussie V8.
We thought we could break them.
It is very, very warm.